So, signal transduction and response, all a huge part of the big picture of cell communication. Receiving some sort of chemical stimulus, moving that message into the cell, and formulating the appropriate response. What is that response going to be? Is that to produce a particular protein? Is it to activate a specific gene? Here we have an example of a growth factor ligand. So here this is outside the cell, plasma membrane, inside the cell, nuclear membrane, and inside the nucleus itself. So what do we have going on here? We're receiving a growth factor. Receptor triggers a phosphorylation cascade. That transduction process causes for a transcript factor to be produced. That transcript factor is going to allow us to produce a specific transcript. That transcript now is going to produce some sort of protein that will cause this cell to grow. So from growth factor received outside that cell to a specific protein that will cause cell growth to happen. But there are multiple responses that might be needed. So what do we need that cell to do? Do we need that cell to carry on its regular behaviors, carry on its typical metabolism? Do we need that cell to divide? Do we need that cell to differentiate? You're no longer a generalized cell. Okay? You're no longer some sort of pluripotent cell, but now you are a very specific and different kind of cell. Or do we need that cell to give itself for the life of the larger organism? We'll come back to apoptosis in the next installment. One of the more impressive parts of response is the amplification of that response. So in this particular instance, one of the more common examples is epinephrine's effect in liver cells. Epinephrine is that chemical that gives us that fight or flight response. Okay, I'm scared, I'm startled, I've got to get going. And I'm probably going to need some immediate energy to do that. So here's one molecule of epinephrine received, and the signal is amplified in a huge cascade that can produce a great deal of glucose molecules needed for energy at the end of the entire process. One molecule of epinephrine can release 1 billion molecules of glucose from the glycogen stored in the liver. An incredible and very necessary release of energy in a very quick fashion. But that epinephrine gives us a variety of responses depending on the cell that receives that signal, because they all have a different job to do. So here in the liver, the epinephrine breaks down glycogen into glucose. The same epinephrine received by the heart increases the cardiac muscle contractions. That same ligand received by different cells produces different genes. Genes produce different proteins. Those proteins are because of a different transduction cascade, all of which elicit a different response depending on the cell that receives it, and appropriately so. Take a look at all of the different responses that are going to be needed throughout the body. Okay? The acetylcholine, the norepinephrine, the adrenaline, if you will, produced by the adrenal gland, and the different parts of the body they have to hit. The eyes are going to dilate. Your muscles are going to tense. Your heart's going to start beating faster. Your breathing rate is going to increase. All of those different responses have to happen from one signal molecule. All of these different responses, multiple as they are, happen from the effects of epinephrine and norepinephrine. Next, we'll take a look at when a cell is absolutely required to die.